Good evening, afternoon or morning. Movie Cat is at the microphone and today I will tell you about a fantasy drama, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
I didn't know I was a child. I thought I was an old man in the twilight of his life.
On the day the First World War ended in 1918, the wife of a small industrialist, Thomas Button, gives birth. Upon learning of this, Thomas comes running and he wonders why the priest is standing under the door. The doctor says the wife is dying and not everything is alright with the newborn son. Thomas opens the blanket and is horrified. He grabs the bundle with the baby and while everyone around is confused, Thomas runs away. His first desire is to throw the newborn into the river, but Thomas acts more humanely. He leaves the bundle at the nursing house. This house is not a state hospital, but a Christian initiative. Mistress Queenie and her husband go out to get some air and notice a baby under their feet. The husband is also frightened when he sees the child. But Queenie believes that the baby is God's creation, no matter how he looks. The local doctor, after examination, says that the child is deaf. He has cataracts in front of his eyes. His bones are affected by arthritis. His whole body as if belongs to an 80-year-old man who already has one foot in the grave. Queenie decides to keep the baby and names him Benjamin. A few years later, Benjamin has grown up. He moves in a wheelchair and can hold a spoon by himself. However, Ben does not know that he is a child. Instead, he considers himself the same old man as those others who live out their lives in this house. At the same time, Benjamin is curious and day by day is more and more active. He calls Queenie Mom and gradually learns to speak. One day, Queenie takes Ben to the church and there the priest in the name of God orders the old man in the wheelchair to get up and go. Ben's bones are already strong, but the muscles are not yet developed, so he can stand, but falls when walking. One day, Mr. Otti comes to their house to visit someone he knows. Seeing Benjamin, the guy who is not as old as he looks, Otti calls him for a beer. Curious Ben, who is forbidden to leave the house, follows Otti outside, barely keeping up on his crutches. So Ben, for the first time in his life, rides the tram, walks the streets, sees the city and the river. Otti suddenly says that he has a meeting with a woman. Ben has to walk home alone. He rubs calluses with crutches, and at home, Queenie scolds him strongly for disappearing. But now Benjamin knows that the world is not so dangerous, that the nurse house families visit the elderly on holidays. On Thanksgiving Day 1930, Ben meets a person who, according to him, changed his life forever, a 7-year-old red-haired girl Daisy, the granddaughter of one old woman. Daisy says that the turkey is not quite a bird because it cannot fly. Unlike other old people, Ben is very interested in such facts. During the dinner party, Queenie announces that she and her husband are having a baby. Later in the evening, little Daisy builds a castle using blankets and invites Ben to play there. Daisy's grandmother finds them and, for reasons unknown to Ben, shames and scolds him. A few more years pass. Ben notices that hair is growing on his body in different places and his muscles are getting stronger every day. He walks without crutches. One day, sitting on a bench by the sea, Ben hears how the captain of the boat is looking for a sailor instead of the one who did not come. Benjamin agrees on this job out of curiosity and is very pleased that he is also paid $2 a day for the work he would do for free. Captain Clark, also out of curiosity, finds out that the old man still has an erection. Moreover, every morning, but he has never been with a woman. Then Clark takes Ben to a brothel. There, Benjamin understands two moments. Money is a useful thing and sex with a woman is very pleasant. The girl, who took pity on the old man and accepted him, enjoys it and she calls Ben to come again. From the brothel, Ben is walking home, when suddenly the car stops and the man offers to ride Ben home such a rainy evening. However, if Ben takes his time, they can have a drink before. The man introduces himself as Thomas Button. He owns a button factory. Ben tastes whiskey for the first time and answers Thomas' questions. Yes, his hands are like that because he was born old. No, it's not scary to be old. Thomas gives Ben a ride home and says he'd love to have a drink together like this once in a while. Once Daisy comes to the house to visit her grandmother, she is already a teenager. Ben is glad to see her and takes her by the hand early in the morning to bring her to the longboat. There he asks Captain Clark to take them for a ride. Once, when Ben cuts his hair, he notices that he has more hair and straighter posture. In 1936, Benjamin packs up, says goodbye to Queenie and leaves home. He goes to sea on a longboat under the command of Captain Clark. who only wonders how this hunched, half-dead old man has become so straight and strong in a couple of years. Ben says that the captain drinks too much. Work at sea brings the longboat to Cold Murmansk. There the team settles in a hotel called the Winter Palace. In Ben's opinion, days here are long, but even longer are nights, because he started to get insomnia. At one of these nights, down in the lobby, he meets Elizabeth, the wife of an English merchant. Over the tea, she told about all the places she had visited. Ben and Elizabeth started talking every night. At one of such nights, Elizabeth teaches Ben to drink vodka with caviar. Things, in her opinion, are the only good you can find in Murmansk. After, Elizabeth kisses Ben, and the next night they move on. This continues for several nights, until Ben unexpectedly finds a farewell note under the door. This turns out to be just in time, because the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, and the US calls on all American boats for search and rescue work. The captain collects his team and they leave Murmansk. For several years, the longboat has been towing wrecked ships and their large pieces, until one day the ship is not noticed by an enemy submarine and then got attacked by a heavy machine gun. The whole team perishes. Only Benjamin miraculously remains alive, and in the morning he is picked up by an American military cruiser. In May 1945, Benjamin returns home. Queenie barely recognizes him. Ben is so young now. She strongly believes that that preacher in the church really breathed life into Ben. Queenie says that now it would be nice to find Ben a new job and maybe a wife. A couple of weeks later, a grown-up Daisy comes to the house. Ben recognizes her immediately, probably due to a grooming career in ballet. 23-year-old Daisy looks all 35. But Benjamin anyway considers her the most beautiful girl in the world. They go on a date, but despite Daisy's words that she is already an adult for everything, Ben refuses to sleep with her. After a couple days, an old friend, Thomas, comes and calls Ben for a drink. His button business has grown significantly since they last time saw each other. Thomas confesses that he is terminally ill and that Ben is his son. As a result, Thomas wants to leave his profitable enterprise to Ben. After burying his father, Benjamin moves to New York. Taking flowers, he goes to the ballet concert to see Daisy. After the performance, he invites the girl to a restaurant, but Daisy was not ready for this. She has a young boyfriend, the attention of numerous fans, and also they are going to a delightful party with the whole troupe. Ben returns to Queenie's house to help her. A few years later, Ben receives a telegram from Paris. All this time, Daisy danced in the best halls of Europe, until one day in Paris she decided to cross the street in a dance, her back forward, without looking at the road. Having broken her legs in 5 places, she will no longer be able to dance. Her friend sent a telegram to Ben, but Daisy herself does not want him to see her so helpless. Daisy rudely shoos Ben away. In spring of 1962, Daisy returns. Now practically the same age, Ben and Daisy spend the night together. On his father's yacht, Benjamin goes on a trip with Daisy to the islands of Central America. When they return, they find out that Queenie has died. After saying goodbye to the woman who raised him, Ben sells his father's house and buys a duplex. There he and Daisy live the happiest years. One day Daisy says she is pregnant. Ben is afraid of 2 things. First, the fact that the child will have the same peculiarity like him. Second, that moving in the opposite direction, he will not be a very good father. After all, when the child grows up, Ben will become a teenager himself. Daisy calms down Ben in every possible way, saying that he will be a father as long as he can. The child is born normal, and then to solve another difficulty, Ben sells the button business, leaves all the proceeds to Daisy and their newborn daughter. Then he gets on a motorcycle and leaves their duplex forever. Benjamin has been traveling through Asia for many years. One day, after a dance lesson, Daisy sees a very young Ben at the entrance to the hall. Her husband and a 13-year-old daughter come out from behind. Daisy introduces Ben to them as her friend. Later in the evening, Daisy arrives at Ben's hotel for one last night with him. A few years later, Daisy receives a call from a social worker. The police found a 12-year-old boy who lived in an abandoned house and did not remember anything about himself. His notebook had Daisy's name and the address of the house where he had grown up. And even though Queenie is dead, the nursing home is still open, so Ben is staying here. Daisy constantly visits Ben, and when he becomes very small, she moves to a nursing home. By this time, her daughter had already become an adult, and her husband had died. In the spring of 2003, in the body of a baby, Ben dies. Thank you for watching, press hearts, write any comment for the development of the channel, and be sure to subscribe if you would also like to live in the opposite direction, better not from birth, but from the age of 70.